What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Last year, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, when it released, really impressed a lot of people with some of the things it was doing with specifically physics in-game, and even left many developers in awe. But recently we had Nintendo give a lecture around the development of the game and them having to solve all kinds of other issues in the background. Actually, how you'd expect video game developers to do so. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Concord. It's out officially today, but we had some more information get out there that actually seems to make the situation even worse, especially when we learned how long the game took to develop. And we'll also be talking about a really cool looking collector's edition for the latest Sonic game coming up. And yes, it's coming from limited run, so it's going to be really cool in a couple of years when it actually gets delivered. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you'd like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. We're going to start today with a very recent announcement from Hideo Kojima for Death Stranding 2, especially with Tokyo Game Show right around the corner. Appears like he'll be in attendance with a whole bunch of people. This is posted up over on the Kojima Productions website. My favorite part here, of course, is that second sentence. Anyway, Kojima Productions will host a panel discussion on Death Stranding 2 on the beach for PlayStation 5 with visionary game creator Hideo Kojima. This is Kojima's own company putting the press release. Anyway, yes, visionary game creator Hideo Kojima. Anyway, they're going to be talking about the latest update in the development of Death Stranding 2 on the beach, and there is still a ton of information we need to know about this game because the trailers, well, the most recent one was pretty awesome. I mean, there's like a electric guitar battle going on and stuff. We don't really know what's necessarily going on at this point, so still, again, a lot of information that has to be shared here, maybe even some information as to when we can expect it to release. But this will be happening on Sunday, September 29th, 10:30 to 11:30 Japan Standard Time, so don't really know the conversion off the top of my head there. But interested, of course, to see more about Death Stranding 2, just because it's such a wild and out there concept with some of the stuff that was shown, but it's Kojima, so we're kind of used to it by now. Also, after 18 years, it appears that a cult classic racing series is returning. There's a trailer that's about 20 seconds, and really it's just a teaser to announce that the title card, I guess. But we can see this over on Gamatsu. They say Genki has announced Tokyo Xtreme Racer, its first new console racing game in 18 years. This will launch on PC via Steam in 2025. English, Japanese, simplified Chinese language support. I would assume that console versions would follow later on, but at this time it's just through PC. I believe the latest game, as mentioned here, 2006's Import Tuner Challenge for the Xbox 360, but I feel like most people remember this very fondly for the PlayStation 2 era, with Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3, for example, and others. I just unfortunately never got into like the Tokyo Xtreme Racing series at all. I was more Need for Speed, like Underground 2, that kind of thing. But as soon as this got announced, RGT messaged me and said, we're playing this. We absolutely are. And I looked at the teaser, some of the screenshots from it, and it still looks like that PS2 era sort of art style, if that makes sense. It looks that way, just cleaned up, like obviously a higher resolution, that kind of thing. So I do like the way that it's looking so far in this very brief teaser. So I'll keep an eye on this one again, 2025 so far through PC, but we'll see if we get anything about consoles as well. Oh, and if you're looking to upgrade the storage capacity for your PlayStation 5 and you looked at that 4 terabyte and thought, you know what, it's not enough, not gonna cut it for all the stuff I download. Well, there's an 8 terabyte SSD or NVMe that is now available for about $1,000. I mean, here's an image of it. This is from Western Digital. And I mean, just to make the value a little better, does come with a 1-month trial of PlayStation Plus Premium. I mean, this is getting a little outlandish for the PS5. I do have a 4 terabyte that I picked up and we checked out in a video, and I really haven't had to go back and even delete anything still, despite downloading and installing a lot of stuff. And it even mentions here up to 200 games. I mean, even has a little heatsink on there that you expect from Western Digital. Still, though, $1,000. I would probably look at that and, you know what, I think I'm going to delete some games instead. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a peek behind the curtain for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is a phenomenal release last year, obviously following up Breath of the Wild. Just some of the stuff you could do in the game, especially with interactivity with the world around you and the different objects and creating all kinds of stuff that seems like the internet is still working on discovering to this day. Very impressive. We had many developers even post about how incredible incredible some of the stuff was that was happening in front of them as they were playing through it. So naturally, it's interesting to hear about the development behind the scenes, specifically the workflow that's involved here and the efficiency that they were trying, or efficiency level they were trying to reach here with all the possibilities that were in front of them as they were creating this game. Well, this was actually a lecture that was held, and we can see posted up. This is from Automaton. They say at Japan's Computer Entertainment Development Conference, CEDEC, held on August 22nd, Nintendo held a lecture on the topic of Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom's development. Tears of the Kingdom's basic production workflow, as introduced, consisted of the following steps. There's a drawing board, implementation, playtest after reaching a milestone, data collection, and analysis. They even have sort of a screenshot here from this lecture on the site you can see. And the team needed a way to make the last 3 steps of this process smoother and more efficient. And the solution to this issue was to use an in-house bulletin board system. Essentially, it sounds like Nintendo kind of created like an in-house social media platform, very pared back, obviously, since a lot of it was communication within the office based around ideas, workflow, situations, things like that to improve efficiency. They named it the Rupee Bulletin Board. And it's very important as to why they named it that, because instead of using likes or I guess giving like little thumbs up or thumbs down, you would give rupees, and they had all the different colors seemingly represented, I guess, different values for it. And as feedback came in, say, from different playtests, and there were issues that were found, maybe connecting wheels to a certain board was acting up a bit, and it wasn't just right, maybe with the ground underneath of it, you'd post that there, then a bunch of rupees would get thrown at it if they felt that it was very important, or maybe really fun things were found, and they would drop a bunch of red or blue rupees on there, and then off they went. But this gave a clear visual representation to go by when you're scrolling through, say, for where to focus attention. Which is, yes, a very clever idea, but also just reminds me of just little things like Miiverse, where we had a lot of bulletin board and just messages being posted up that are still being memed to this day. But the idea of Nintendo creating this very, I guess, simplified, but also video game-like that's themed around the game they're working on, like a Slack channel almost, is very Nintendo-like, to come up with an issue and then solve it while still kind of looking at it as the video game that they are currently developing. It also I saw people online go, oh, wouldn't it be interesting if Nintendo had their own social media platform? It would probably be very weird, to be honest, but I mean, Twitter's very weird, so is Facebook. So hey, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, if they want to bring back something that's more sociable with the next Switch system at a system level like a Miiverse, I think that'd be interesting just to revisit that idea and see what Nintendo come up with now, just after observing all the other social media stuff that's currently been evolving over the last decade or so now online. But then we also had one other aspect that was shared here, which we can see. This says the Tears of the Kingdom's infrastructure engineers also designed an image board based tool that made it possible for the team to manually check 120,000 object combinations made using Link's new Fuse ability. See, I feel like we see these abilities that were playing out in front of us in the game, and we thought of some combinations, but then you realize people are really going to test the boundaries here, and it appears they were doing that the entire way within Nintendo, and I feel like a lot of the time was just spent with QA, quality assurance, making sure things aren't breaking constantly when they're fusing things all over the world. And for the most part, the thing that was really, I think, the most impressive about Tears of the Kingdom is it didn't break, like, while you were doing all this stuff. At least not from what I saw. I'm sure there were some crashes out there with different Switch games, but it was not very frequent or common at all. So interesting stuff here. I'll leave a link to the entire article down below in the sources. You can check out some of the other stuff that was there, because they really did go in depth as to some of the issues they came across and how they solved it in a very Nintendo way. Next up, let's talk about Concord, as it is out today. And for the most part, the people who are playing it seem to be having a good time. That's the thing with this game. While people have been beating it down over like the aesthetic of it and stuff, and yes, it does look very generic in terms of hero shooters, it still functions well enough, I feel like, and it's just a competent game in terms of the game itself. Is this a hero shooter that functions? Yes. Are there some interesting aspects to different characters? Yes, but is it interesting as a whole to bring people in and spend $40? Doesn't seem to be at this point. In fact, early access has been going on, as I mentioned, and it seems like bots are kind of getting thrown in there, and while people haven't been able to necessarily track Steam numbers, it seems like there's just over 100 reviews, and Well, that probably tells you sales aren't exactly through the roof through Steam. Maybe on PlayStation they're a bit better. But then we started getting information around the development of the game, which you can see. This is posted up over on Twitter X. This is from Nusk, who says, today Firewalk Studios launched Play Concord. The game has been in development for around 8 years, and I've been there for almost 5 of them. We don't get a lot of launch days in our careers, so today is special for a ton of reasons. Oblige me some good vibes today. And I've said this before, look, developers at these different studios, they are generally involved with just making the game work. They're, of course, giving different tasks, and they have some creative freedom, but for the most part, they are taking orders, of course, from directors and producers above them. So, yes, developers, they're doing their best with a lot of these projects, and at times, obviously, they're going to be very excited when something launches, and it does make me at times wonder when a game like Concord comes out, and it's clear to us, it's got to be clear to them too, a lot of developers working on this, it's not doing well, and you're going, you're going into work to develop and create things for this, and you're like, it's just, it feels like it's not very motivational, I'll say, to have that all flying around there. But the part that stuck out to me, and I'm sure many people, 8 years of development for this game, it's like, that's not a cheap game to make. Now, 8 years of development. You can start in the conceptual phase and don't actually go into full-scale production for like another 4 or 5 years. It could have been 3 or 4 years of like serious all hands on deck, let's get this thing done kind of development. Whereas before that, it'd be, a handful of developers working to just pitch the idea and show off that, yes, we want to make an Overwatch game, which if you go back 8 years, Overwatch came out about 8 years ago. So it kind of makes sense now, looking at this in hindsight, how they came to the conclusion that they wanted to make this hero shooter, because Overwatch was doing incredible. The problem is, and this is what we've run into with a lot of live service games, it takes a long time to develop games right now. Big AAA titles, as we've seen, 7 or 8 years is not uncommon right now, and the live service field is so fluid, it's impossible, I feel like, to develop something on a trend now and believe that it will still be that popular 5 years from now, let alone 8. So you really have to come up with your own new concept and try to set your own lane and attract people to it, because it stands out so much. And unfortunately for Concord, it's not really doing a great job of that. But hey, we'll find out, I think, later on today. The official game launches on Steam, like just the regular edition, at $40, and we should see concurrent player count numbers, and something tells me it's not going to be great. Next up, let's talk about Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, as Nintendo is officially shutting it down. Kind of. They're actually doing something that I believe is good for live service games, and hopefully an example we see more and more. The cell phone space is all over the place when it comes to live service games. Shutdowns happen all the time. Even very popular games, if they start running out of steam, they just cut out completely. And in fact, all that money you may have spent on like the gacha elements where you're trying to pull a certain character or a card, they're just gone. That's it. It could be thousands of dollars. Doesn't matter. But we can see this posted up by Nintendo over on their site. They say online service for Animal Crossing Pocket Camp will end on November 29th, 2024. Since service began on November 21st, 2017 for approximately 7 years, we have been honored to see everybody's lovely, diverse campsites grow and flourish. We extend our heartfelt thanks to the many users who have loved Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. Here's the interesting part, though. They are currently developing a paid version of the app to which you'll be able to transfer your save data. It will be released during the same period as the end of service for Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. Now, I don't necessarily know a pricing on this at all currently. Just keep in mind apparently those Leaf tickets aren't necessarily going to be something you'll be using anymore, because it's not going to be calling to a server any longer with the live service elements and the updates. While they will still be able to connect, but online play or just online connection is not required. What they're basically doing here is turning this into a standalone Animal Crossing game for mobile devices that you just buy. And remember, Nintendo did start out trying to get into the mobile phone gaming scene, doing just that with Mario Run. It didn't necessarily work out, so they shifted over to the free-to-play model, and with something like Fire Emblem, which has seen incredible success for them, that seems to be the way to go. But eventually, yes, you run out of steam, 7 years or something like this, and they want to close things off, and instead of just shutting it down completely, they'll turn it into an actual game. And I think that is a good kind of way to go out, because we see so many of these cell phone games shut down and nothing comes of it. It's just gone the next day. Sometimes they will allow you to basically download a trophy case, and you'll be able to see, say, all these different cards that you leveled up in this game, and you just kind of look at them. In this case, though, at least there's an actual game coming out the other end of it, but yes, you will have to technically, I guess, pay for it. Maybe it's like $10, $15, $20. Even then, $20 for an Animal Crossing game that you're probably going to spend a lot of time with or already have. I mean, that's a lot better than what we've seen with thousands of dollars getting dumped into some of these gacha games. But let me know if you're someone who's been playing Pocket Camp. I'm very curious what your thoughts are on this move. Are you sad about it getting shut down? Or maybe you're actually happy that, hey, it's going to become like a legitimate Animal Crossing game on my mobile phone. Also, when I say legitimate, I just mean it won't need to call to a server anymore to exist. It can just be offline on your phone by itself, like video games used to be. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a really cool collector's edition that Sonic fans are really excited for, and it's going to be awesome when it eventually shows up years from now. Okay, actually, Limited Run is at least shooting for within the next year to deliver this thing, it seems. We can see it over on their website, though. This is the Sonic Cross Shadow Generations Collector's Edition. It's for all the different platforms here that they'll have the game on, of course. And the big thing is you can see the statue. Yeah, it's Sonic and Shadow on top of a Dreamcast. That's actually pretty awesome. Now, I assume it's just the statue. I don't think it does anything, lights up, nothing like that, but I guess we'll find out as people, of course, get these things into their hands seemingly next year, as they have the estimated ship date is July 1st to the 31st, which we're in August, so that would be then 2025 July. But still, it's in pre-production now. They're upfront about that, and if you want, they are going to ship out the game they're trying to do release window delivery. So sometime between October 25th and November 8th, they're going to separate the game itself from this collector's edition and ship that out ahead of time, which, yeah, you don't want to wait until next year to get the game. If you're a big fan of this and want to spend $250 on the Sonic Shadow Generations Collector's Edition, you probably want to play the game as soon as it comes out. That also means I'm sure some may already get the digital edition and also buy this and leave it sealed, or I don't know. I've seen that too. But still, this collector's edition definitely looks packed. There's an art book, official soundtrack. We have that statue, a Dreamcast jewel case. That's kind of neat. A steel book, Chow figurines. There's a keychain, and then an individually numbered certificate of authenticity. Again, pre-orders are now live on their site. Just keep in mind all of the good stuff around the game you'll probably be seeing next summer. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, will there be a PlayStation showcase in September? So I wanted to put this up because I'm curious where people's thought process is right now going into a month that has Tokyo Game Show, but also a month where the PlayStation 5 Pro is expected to be announced. If they want to get this thing out, say in November, and that's probably the latest you'd want to release a new system, you want to show it off at least 2 months in advance to get things prepped and ready to go on the shipment and logistics side. But also, Sony has been, they've been without a showcase for a while, and I specifically said showcase, not state of play, because I want to know if people think that's really going to happen. Are we going to get the big blowout showcase that people have been calling for months, more than a year now? Like the big showcase. I mean, it seems like it's time. But every time I say that, they announce a state of play, and let's be real, they could push that PS5 Pro as a PlayStation blog post with all the big details and just tack it on the end of a state of play to start setting up, I guess, the first half of 2025. But eventually, you feel like Sony has to show up with a lot of their first parties, and at that point, that's when we should see a showcase. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Dallows, who says, I think Game Pass essentially killed Xbox. It isn't profitable and destroys the value of games. It also gets customers adjusted to renting instead of owning. So the profitable part, Phil Spencer has said that it's profitable. So while that is Phil Spencer saying that, and I mean, there's so many examples, most recently with how he was talking about the 4 games. It's not Indiana Jones, but oh yeah, here's Indiana Jones 6 months later going to the PS5. Yeah, I get it. So hard to exactly say where the corporate speak ends and like where does Phil Spencer actually start talking himself. So in this case, though, with Game Pass, yeah, I think there's an obvious case to be made that if people are subscribing to Game Pass, they are less likely to then buy games on the storefront, especially for full price, and they'll look to their subscription service they spend money on every month for entertainment. That makes sense. Even though, again, Phil Spencer said things like, subscribers for Game Pass end up spending more money than people who don't subscribe, the actions from Microsoft right now are not reflecting that, because they are looking outside of Xbox and PC. They're looking at the Switch and the PlayStation 5, they're the other consoles on the market, for additional revenue streams, most likely because the Xbox and the PC aren't enough right now to hold up the budgets that currently their studios are demanding to put these big-time games out there. So in a way, yes, you could look at Game Pass right now and say, you know, that experiment isn't really working how they were hoping it would. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll have it up here in a card right next to me. Or maybe you wanna see a Game Boy that has an OLED screen installed into it, because I'll tell you this, it's next level. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.